All right, I'm going to call to order the Common Council meeting on December 10th at 7:30. That's like 7:32 now. First up is Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd please stand. All right, roll call, please.
Alder Radafrada is absent with excuse. Alder Barr.
Present.
Alder Clouder.
Aye.
Alder Krause. Alder Rice. Mayor Richardson.
Here.
Alder Schroeder.
Here.
Alder Scott. Alder Strassman. Here. You have a quorum.
All right, thank you. All right, first up is public appearances on non-agenda items and new appointments. But first, we would like to recognize the Verona boys soccer team who won states. So if you guys want to join me in front here. Yeah, we would just, because we'll take a couple photos here, both sides, get comfortable. For those who don't know, the Verona boys soccer team won state this year. I believe it's the first time you've won state. So we did want to kind of recognize and congratulate you on your successful season and state championship and wish you many more years of success. And I know that we've got a number of the players here. I believe Elliot, Sam, and Gannon were the captains of the team. And Coach, as a Coach Ernest or Coach to, I don't know, or Tata, would you like to say something too?
Thank you, Mayor, aldermans, parents, and City of Fitchburg. We want to say a big thank you for this recognition. The boys and I really appreciate this. It was a long, tough season, but we came through, and today we stand here as the best boys soccer team in the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
All right. Next up is we have some more mayoral appointments for the Housing Advisory Committee. First is Mallory Gorman. Mallory, if you could just come up and maybe just introduce yourself a little bit. Yeah, right here would be great. That would be fantastic.
My name is Mallory Gorman. I live in Fitchburg and have lived in Fitchburg since the early 80s, I want to say 1983. So I've been around for a long time. Currently live in Fitchburg on an original homestead here that's been here for 150 years. My background is I'm a lawyer. I have a master's in real estate from the Grass Camp program here at the UW. I also have a master's in tax from DU University. I work for Baker Tilly, which is a financial services advisory firm. And I advise clients on various incentives and credits and structuring methodologies for real estate development. So I work with historic tax credits, low-income housing tax credits, TIF financing, opportunity zones, state incentives, state historic tax credits, and we now have state LIHTC here in Wisconsin as well. So I work with all of those and advising developers and investors. Does anybody have any questions about what I do, or?
Questions at all? All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
Second.
Second. All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you, Mallory.
Thank you very
Mike will be in
much.
touch.
Okay.
All right, next up, Adrian Wofford. If you come up and introduce yourself, that would be great.
Hello, everybody. My name is Adrienne Walford. I am in Fitchburg. I'm a property manager in Stonecrest Apartments, and I've been there since February 2009.
All right. Any questions at all? Yeah, Dorothy.
Not necessarily question, but I would like to say that I've known her for a number of years. And when I say management is everything, she's the answer.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else? Someone like to make a motion? That'd be great. All right. All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Mike will
you.
be in contact. He's in the back. I don't know if you had a chance to meet him yet. All right. And then last, Brian Shimming. If you'd like to come up, please.
Good evening. My name is Brian Shimming. I've been a resident of Fitchburg for over 20 years. I was most recently Chief Operating Officer of WHEDA, the Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority, where I chaired our internal loan committee and oversaw a number of our tax credit programs that we have at WHEDA, which is a statewide organization. But we were active here in Fitchburg, including with the new senior living facility over on Fish Hatchery, which I'm very excited about. And I had previously served as the head of the State Division of Housing at the Department of Administration, where we oversaw HUD formula programs, Hickory state-level programs as well, and served on some national boards, including the Council of State Community Development Agencies, which examines and supports affordable housing programs across the country. So a lot of involvement there, and just see great opportunity. Fitchburg, great place to live, and we want to make sure that's the case for everyone. So,
All right. Any questions for Brian? Dorothy?
For people who are concerned about the word affordable, how about talking about that a bit?
yeah, we heard that a fair bit at WHEDA, just in terms of the kind of the lingo of the of the whole discussion, and it's really. In a sense, it's, I would always tell folks, and I went across the state very, very extensively in this position as head of the state division of housing, and particularly in an economy where we've got a full employment economy, that adds some stresses too. There's some challenges to that too. I don't look at that issue. I always tell communities you have to get to a place in a sense where everyone wants to live there. That's really what you want. You want to get to a place where people of all shapes and sizes want to come and live in your community. And I definitely think that's the case with Fitchburg, but let's face it, we're very unique in terms of our history and how we've grown. And that presents some interesting challenges, but they're all challenges that can be met. Whenever I hear something, and I appreciate your question, whenever I hear that, and I've heard it before, we've got the resources, and frankly, we've got public service, we got people in public office, and folks who want to step up to help make those things a reality. And that it's a challenge, certainly, and we have different challenges sometimes that larger cities around us have, particularly the city of Madison, of course. But the resources are there to handle these things, and I always say to folks, our communities can always be better if we just get folks to sit down and work together on those issues, and that's what we ought to be focused on.
Any other questions at all? All right, is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Up next is consent agendas, or a motion to approve the consent agenda. All right. I know that I need to remove B2. Is there anything else that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? All right. Seeing none.
Did you,
Oh.
Mayor, did you say you're removing it?
Just to discuss quick. I just need to add it, referring it to another committee besides what's on here. So
Would
I'm
your,
not-
with your thought, could you just put finance on there too?
that's what I'm gonna do. Yep. Yeah, so, first, if there's seen nothing else, all in favor of approving everything except for B2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, so then B2, I just want to add finance as another referral option to that. So if someone could make a motion to, I guess, add finance and then refer that out, that'd be great.
I'll make the motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of adding finance as one of the places to refer this to and approving, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right. Moving right along then. Next up is Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few items to report tonight. We do have a couple meetings in the near future in regards to the Lake Barney project and the stormwater concerns down there. The first of which is December 11th at 2 p.m. All of these meetings will take place at City Hall. So December 11th, 2 p.m. The second is January 13th. It's January 13th at 9 a.m. So public are welcome to those meetings, but there will be staff and members of the community also that are impacted from this project there. So the next thing is that tax bills are going to be going out Thursday, this Thursday, and our residents and businesses can expect those bills in the mail sometime over the weekend or early next week. So please look for those. Next, on January 23rd, is the Chamber Annual Meeting. That will take place at Funk's, located off Marketplace there. And I believe that starts at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. on the 23rd of January. And then lastly, the annual Christmas program that was held for the youth in our community at the community center was this past weekend. We had over 140 families at the holiday party. Great success. A lot of people registered ahead of time, and you know, it was just, it seems like every year this program gets bigger, and it's a great event for our community. So I know the mayor will probably have some stuff to speak to that in his report also, because he was there. So that's all I have.
Any questions at all? All right, seeing none, we'll move along. Nothing on Plan Commission, though we do have a meeting this Thursday. You're all welcome to attend. We're going to be talking about the comp plan further at that point, and so please feel free to come to that along with the public as well. The Board of Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. We will begin with entertaining, or I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R101-19, final resolution exercising police powers and levying special assessments for the 2008 water main improvements on Lacey Road in the city of Fitchburg, Wisconsin.
Is there a second? Second. All right, did Public Works approve?
They did.
Did Finance approve?
Yes.
All right, do you want to tell us what this is, Dan?
This is water main on Lacey Road from Lacey Road to on Lacey Road on the east side of town over to Highway 14 on MM, County MM.
All right, questions at all, comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Next up, Dan.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R102-19, final resolution exercising police powers and levying special assessments for the 2017 Lacey Road water and sewer improvements.
All right, seconded. Did Public Works approve?
You did.
Did Finance approve?
Yes.
All right, what's this one, Dan?
So this is on Jones Farm Drive, water, sewer, and sewer special assessments.
All right, any questions on this piece at all? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, that was approved. Next up, Dan.
Okay, and I'll make a motion to approve a resolution R 103-19, final resolution exercising police powers and levying special assessments for the 2017 Lacey Road water main improvements.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, did Public Works approve?
They did.
All right, Finance approve? Excellent. All right, what's about this one, Dan?
This is the water main in front of Corey Vista.
All right, questions on this one at all? All right, moving right along, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that is approved as well. Next up.
Okay, and this is a motion to approve resolution R 211-19, authorizing stormwater rates for 2020.
Is there, all right, did Public Works approve?
They did.
Did Finance approve?
Yes.
All right, what's this one, Dan?
So we're just updating our stormwater rates, and maybe Pat wants to get into the details on that.
We do have a brief presentation here by our consultant that conducted this study with Rupert Milkie, and I have the presentation up on the screen. If you just indicate when you want me to flip.
Okay, sounds good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Maxwell. I'm with the firm Rupert & Milkie, and I'll walk through the highlights and key points from the report that you already have. If you have any questions as we're going through, feel free to ask as we're going, okay? And just a quick background on this rate update. Rates were last updated in 2013, and there have been quite a few changes since then. The city has added thousands of ERUs, or equivalent residential units, since the last update. It's also seen more need for infrastructure, so new projects have been added to the needs list. And the rates are designed to help the utility achieve its mission, which is threefold. 1, flood control, 2, improve water quality, and 3, comply with state and federal regulations. And to gather the resources needed, rates are split into 3 components. There's a citywide rate, which is charged to both rural and urban users, and that's for aspects of the system that benefit everyone. And then the second component is what's called the urban service area rate, and that goes just to urban area users for aspects of the system that benefit them. The third component is called the intensity rate, and that is for properties that have impervious areas that are that have greater concentrations of impervious areas. Say like a big box retail store that has a lot of parking lot, it would get a higher intensity rate bill component to it. So these are the 3 rate components. For this rate update, would you go back just one slide? Oh, no worries. Thank you. The first component is proposed to go up 17%, the citywide rate that everyone pays, and the intensity rate is proposed to go up 18%. And then the middle aspect, the urban service area rate, sees a sharp decline of 58%. And I'll go into the reasons why on the next slide.
Before you go to the next slide, the dollar amounts, though, even though it's a high percentage, if I'm reading it right, it's kind of hard to read. It's like $2 per quarter. Is that right? Okay.
Yes, yeah. And we can go to the next slide and go into the reasons why these rates are changing. So for each of the rate components, the math is pretty straightforward. It's all the costs allocated to that area divided by the number of ERUs, or equivalent residential units. And for the citywide rate, costs are first split between the urban area and the rural area. And for the rural area, costs are up 25% since 2013, which is a rise of about 2.5% per year. However, rural non-residential ERUs are up as well. So while costs are increasing, costs are spread among more users. So costs are not rising 25%, they're only rising 17% because you have added more users to the base. To understand urban service rate, why that's gone down so much, it's important to understand that after costs are split between the rural and the urban areas, they're further subdivided in the urban area between the service rate and the intensity rate. And more costs were allocated to the intensity rate this time around, lowering how many dollars were allocated to the urban service rate. On top of that, urban ERUs are up over 30%, so lots more customers have been added in the urban service area, spreading out those costs much farther. That's why we're seeing such a dramatic decline for the urban service rate in the rate components. Urban intensity rate is a slightly different story. Costs have increased. The costs allocated to that area has increased by over 200,000 since the last rate study. However, the ERUs are up for that area as well. So just like with the citywide rate, the percentage increase isn't as large as the costs are increasing. So we're only seeing an 18% increase as opposed to 25 or 26%, which is what the costs are up. Any questions on that? Let's take a look at the impact on the average customer. So this shows what this will do to average customer's bill. If we look at the urban service area first, you'll see the single-family home users will see their rates decline just slightly, and that's because it's addition of all three components. You have two components going up and one dramatically dropping. It comes out to be almost a wash for these users. With the non-residential customers, you'll notice that one of them sees a slight increase, 2.4%, another sees a slight decrease, 1%. That really depends on their intensity factor, or how concentrated their impervious surface area is. If they have a lot of impervious surface area on their lot, they'll see their costs go up. If they don't, they'll see their costs go down. The rural service area is more straightforward. There, since they're only charged the citywide rate, they'll see that reflected in their rates, a 17% increase, which as a dollar amount annually would come out to be about $7 for a single family home. Any questions on that? Okay.
I've got my hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So for rural, is that a household, or is it talking about acreage? That is each parcel assessed, or a parcel with a home on it only?
That's a good question. I think it's a parcel with a home on it only, but I would have to double check with city engineering.
Because I'm somewhat worried about burden on farmers that already are very burdened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it's per acre or anything like that, so that would be ridiculous, that'd be crazy, yeah.
I believe it's based on tax parcel, but I'm not 100%.
Okay.
Can we ask staff to come help us with that?
I believe it's because it's an equivalent residential unit, so it'd be per residence. So it'd have to be a residential unit to be assessed. It's not by acreage. So it's that equivalent residential unit, what is where the computation comes from. And that's based on, what was that square footage?
3,700 square feet is the current definition.
Single-family lot. So I think it'd be based on that residence.
So if a farmer owns 4 taxable parcels, he's only going to get hit on one of those parcels.
Correct. And it's based on where I think he lives, where he has a residence. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
And then to see if the rates are adequate for the next 5 years, there's a 5-year cash flow forecast put together. Starting with the cash inflows at the top, revenue. Based on the new rates, the stormwater utility is projected to collect $1.4 million in 2020. That's the bottom line of total revenues there. And then for cash outflows, there's operations and maintenance, debt service, and then the big one, which is capital improvements that are cash funded. And you can see for 2020, 2021, and 2022, those are substantial amounts. And that's because the stormwater utility has deferred a number of projects that they'd like to execute on in the next 3 years. And that does lead to a substantially negative cash flow, net cash flow in the first 3 years, which normally would be cause for concern. But in this case, it's not, because the utility has built up a substantial cash reserve because of deferring all those projects. And so at the beginning of 2020, they're projected to have $2.54 million in cash reserves. And they can draw down on those reserves over the next 5 years to fund those projects, even with the negative cash flow. So you can see by the end of 2024, they're projected to still have over $500,000 in cash reserves. I would just recommend that city staff monitor that, especially the cash reserves, especially around 2022, the end of 2022, and possibly establish a cash reserve target. Yes?
Yeah, the question that I was going to ask, I wanted to be sure that this is all Misty approved.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She gave a thumbs up.
And then a couple other items from the report. I was asked to take a look at the ERU definition to make sure it still sort of meets the facts on the ground. And city engineering provided some data on average lot sizes, and they're within 10% of the definition, so I don't recommend changing it at this time. The other thing I took a look at was the credit policy and compared it to peers throughout the state, and Fitchburg measures up very well against peers. Their practices are very comparable. Two recommendations that I'd form out of looking at other credit policies that I believe city engineering is already working on. One is charging an application fee for stormwater credits. Because it is very labor intensive, I would recommend considering a fee like many of your peers have of approximately $150 to review them. The second is with regards to evidence. Many peers put the burden on those who have been granted credits to provide evidence annually that they're maintaining those best practices. And I would recommend that Fitchburg follow suit with that. So first and foremost, I recommend you adopt the proposed fees, and then the other three are really for long-term consideration. Any questions?
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
You can appreciate when the rural area, when they look at a bill like that, they're just saying, what's going on? And is there a way, I just thought of it now, I would ask you in finance. Is there a way that we can correct that or help the rural area as far as bringing those costs down? I mean, is, from what you're presenting here in Fitchburg, I don't know if you know this, is it the same in Sun Prairie? Is it the same in Middleton?
So the cost increases I can compare to other communities that I've done rate updates for, and the increases are far less here than what I've seen in other communities.
Okay.
And a possibility for the next rate update is you could do rate updates more frequently. That might be a way to ease rate shock. That's one possibility.
I think just to, kind of my earlier point, I think it's like quarterly $2 per household. So it's, even though the percentage seems extravagant, the actual dollar amount is pretty low. I mean, we don't want to keep going 17% in the future or anything like that, but I think, the impact is less than $1 a month is what it seems, I believe, for
That's correct.
Everyone.
Yep.
Pat, I think also this is, these increased dollars are funding projects, I believe, like Barney, Fitchburg Road, the corner of Seminole and Lacey, where we have all these water issues, right?
Yeah, the majority of our stormwater projects that have been approved in our CIP that was adopted earlier this year include the majority of rural projects. So they're going to see a benefit to water quality in the rural area significantly. The big one, as the mayor mentioned, is Lake Barney, but there are a lot of other watersheds in the rural area that are going to be improved.
Yeah, no.
Not a question, but two comments that came out of our conversation at Finance. The first is just for the benefit of anybody observing these proceedings, the intensity rate really applies to more of a commercial interest, big box. So that's where that specific area comes in. It's not a residential conversation. My second piece of feedback is that we've seen a number of these civil engineering projects come in, be over budget. And so I think we're just going to need to be mindful of that as we take a look at what we had budgeted and then how all of these calculations come together to make certain that we stay whole through that process.
Other questions, comments at all? No? All right. Seeing none, then we can go to a vote. All in favor of approving, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Approved. All right, next up, Dan, number 5.
Going to make a motion to approve Resolution R 217-19, resolution accepting subdivision improvements in the first, in the plat of the first addition to Stoner Prairie.
Is there a second? All right, did Public Works approve?
They did.
All right, and Deborah, did you want to speak since it says answer questions, but you don't need to. If there's questions, we can have to come up. Do you want to explain it, Dan, or do you want?
So we got punch list items that are being completed, ready for public improvements now. Sounds like they're following along, working with Public Works and making the progress they need to move forward.
And if I remember right, this is the William Ryan project. I know there was some concern about this actually part getting approved so that there will be the extra access on Lacey Road, correct?
Correct.
Yep, I know that was a concern that people had earlier.
The back road, there's two, a way in and a way out,
Yep, yeah,
and traffic and all that.
connect up with Minong, I think.
Right, that's right.
Okay. Any further questions on this one? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed, nay. All right, and that is approved. Next up, Dan.
Going to make a motion to approve Resolution R 218-19. This is a resolution accepting bids for project 19-3488 North Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction.
Serious. All right, did Public Works approve?
They did.
All right, did Finance approve?
They did.
Yes.
All right, Mike and Bill and maybe Thor, if you go ahead and tell us what's going on.
So I can get started. So I'm Mike Scarman with KL Engineering. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk a little bit about the Fish Hatchery Road project. We have a presentation on the screen. I also just gave out some handouts that are kind of same information. So the presentation will focus a little bit on just some project background. As you likely are familiar, this project has been in design since spring of 2018. And was recently bid a second time this fall. So just a little bit of a recap from the schedule standpoint. We had initially bid this project this last summer in August on the 13th. Bids came back in a range where the recommendation from staff at the time was to reject the bid and to rethink some of the elements of the project. So through the course of September and October, after the bid was rejected, we have been busy working on some design changes and other administrative changes to the contract, which was rebid on October 28th. In the meantime, we've been doing some preparation for construction, doing things like planning for utility relocations. A lot of the land acquisition has been taking place, as well as material procurement for the streetlights and the traffic signals. I'll maybe not read everything on this list, but just to remind everybody kind of some of the metrics of the project. It's a very large reconstruct. It's 1.5 miles of Fish Hatchery Road. With 6 lanes, it's almost 10 full lane miles of road being reconstructed, 5 new retaining walls, 8 intersections being upgraded for traffic flow and safety improvements, as well as we are connecting a path basically from north to south to the Beltline on the west side of Fish Hatchery Road. Also achieving some flooding, stormwater mitigation throughout the project, and most notably, there will be a lot of streetscaping, decorative pavement, other very kind of aesthetic-minded enhancements to the project. Just to describe some of the changes, because I think we've talked quite a bit about the project over the last year and a half, but from the first to the second bid, there were some significant changes, primarily schedule-based. So the first bid was based on reconstructing the project entirely within 1 year, scheduled for 2020. So that was done with some prep work that was intended to take place this fall. So the biggest change, we'll talk a little bit about what required the change, but the biggest change is it's getting done over 2 years. So it's going to be essentially a 2 full-year project instead of 1 very aggressive full year. It's now 2 more modest, typical construction seasons of work. Another big change was the allowance to use the existing concrete pavement and base aggregate to be recycled and to reuse, and the lower layers to be part of the new pavement structure. And that was done with kind of coinciding with a lot of quality control measures. This is a process that the Wisconsin Department of Transportation uses for the interstate and other major roadways, so we've mirrored that from a materials and quality control standpoint. A couple other things just in the nature of the contract, some of the lump sum larger bid items were redefined, providing some clarity to the bidders, as well as we built in some alternates, some other contract mechanisms intended to better explain the scope of work and increase competitiveness in bids. So again, just to highlight the changes, so from the standpoint of the schedule changing, there was kind of two major reasons there. The first bid being rejected took away the element of being able to do that fall prep work. So we lost some time, so inevitably we had to rethink the schedule. So that was definitely a big part of it, but also we got a lot of feedback that building that much road in 1 year was aggressive, and pricing reflected that. So kind of providing more time, more flexibility for contractors to build the road over 2 years. We expected that to result in cost savings, which it did. And we also talked about kind of redefining several bid items. We got some questions. Essentially, a lot of feedback from the contractors led to better refinements, better definition of the contract the second time around. And just to kind of leave you with a reminder on the schedule, some of you may recognize this graphic. It's changed with the current concept of 2 years of construction. So essentially the first year, this coming spring in 2020, they'll be focused on the north side of the project, so from Traceway to the Beltline. That's essentially the yellow and blue segments. The sequence will be similar to what the first bid was intended, where it'll rebuild the northbound lanes or the east side of the road first, and then switch traffic, and we'll build the west side. And then the same kind of sequence in the second year, rebuilding the south portion, starting with orange, following up with green. The rest of the slides are more focused on the bid evaluation. So we had received the second bid a better part of a month ago, and kind of up on the screen, we got 4 bidders. Integrity was our low bid. They placed a bid of $20.3 million. Contrast that with Parisi was the high bid at 25.2. It kind of gives you an idea of the range. A couple points to make compared to the first time we bid this. We did get 2 new bidders and 1 additional bidder. We had 3 last time. This time had 4. So from a competitive standpoint, we were happy with the results. Comparing to the first bid, financially speaking, so the low bid we got in August was 22.8 from Zignego. Compare that with our 20.3 low bid. Currently with Integrity, we actually got a $2.5 million reduction, about 11%, and that's with basically the same scope of work, with an exception that we actually added some work, new segment of street on Traceway, about a 1.1 increase, 1.1% increase to the project. So you conceivably look at that as outweighing or increasing some of the bid savings, because we actually added work. But overall, we saw bid reduction, price reductions through the whole contract, whether it was pavements, gravel, structures, utilities. The second bid was favorable in basically all areas. I'll give a little bit of a background on the comparison to the engineer's estimate, and just for those who may not be familiar with engineer's estimates, there are publicly available databases of road construction projects, similar projects that go back several years. So it's essentially a library of average costs for construction projects that we draw from. We use the same basis for the engineer's estimate with the first and the second bid. So we looked at it apples to apples, and this would be, I guess, just from the standpoint of indicative of the kind of the statewide normal for the last year and a half. So it just sets kind of a baseline for comparison. I guess, Pat, if you could go back real quick.
Just to give an idea, the low bid was about 18% above historical trends. Compare that with our first bid, which was 31% over. So there's a pretty significant reduction from the first to the second bid. And I guess just to, the reduction wasn't, completely to be at the engineer's estimate, primarily just with the competitive bidding environment. Private and public sector construction is very aggressive, has been for the last several years, and I think this is just a sign of the times, more than indicative of being over typical estimates. And I think you have the staff report in front of you, so I don't know if there's kind of questions on the bid or the background of the project. Otherwise, that's essentially what we had for the presentation.
Bill, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was going to go through the staff report with regard to the award of the bid and also the budget amendment request, so we can go through that.
You want to do that? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Why don't you go through that?
All right, thank you. Within the packet, there's a section that has overall funding cost impacts, and that table shows what the current capital improvement plan budget approved was at 1,161,590, and what our current needs are. And that reflects the current bid with contingency, as well as other things like the property acquisition and material acquisition for streetlights and traffic signals, and then some utility relocations as well. So that number does increase a little over $6 million from what we had from the previous budget. To offset that cost, the county is going to contribute an additional $1 million to the project. For that, the city of Madison is going to increase their cost share as well, based upon the proportion of those bid items that have increased. So overall, the city portion of the project is being funded approximately 68% by the city, either through general borrowing or through TID borrowing. And then the remainder, 32%, is being funded by the county, city of Madison, and the city of Madison water utility. So when you're looking at the $6 million, where did that cost increase come from? As Mike had just mentioned, the majority of it came from just the construction cost itself at $3.1 million. The contingency was $1.4 million, so you're at $4.5 million roughly right now. One of the areas that also increased was our property acquisition area, where one of the developments that we had thought was going to be dedicating right away, we now have to purchase, and that got to be very expensive, as well as a few properties that have some large signs on them that have to either be relocated or removed. And those costs for purchasing those signs and relocating them were more than expected in the real estate area. As Mike had mentioned, we are designing the road with asphalt, and we're looking at a long-term solution for the city. We look at a 40-year design life for these roads, and it's going to be built to highway standards. So it's not something that's going to disappear within a few years. We did look at how the truck traffic that was going to be on there, the weight, the loads, and we designed the base to support that, as well as the asphalt. There's going to be 8 inches of asphalt over 26 inches of gravel, roughly, which is a highway. So we're providing a good, stable foundation for that, and it's something that's going to last for years to come. As we've been talking to the businesses and developers along the area, there's a lot of interest, and they're very excited about this road coming under construction. And they're looking to get started on their projects as well, and feel it's going to be a good benefit to the community. So in the packet, we're asking for an award to the low bidder that we have. We had 4 bidders that submitted bids. The low bidder tonight is Integrity Grading and Excavating, and we're asking for a bid amount of $20,550,392.33, which is about $40,000, which was above what was in the resolution for approval. But it does include the alternates, which is for the field office that we have to have. As Mike had mentioned, that we bid that out separately because we had a really high bid price the last time as a lump sum. So we bid that out as an alternate. We're recommending that, as well as additional fiber optic conduit for interconnectivity for our traffic signals, as well as future fiber for the city and possible renting out a fiber conduit in the future. The temporary lighting that we're going to need throughout the project to make sure that we have some safe lighting conditions for pedestrians and traffic in that area. And then the high friction pavement, which is green pavement, that is the bike lanes that we want to put through the driveways, the new path that we're putting in on the west side of the road. We want to put those through the driveway to draw more attention to those driveways as the bicycles and pedestrians cross those. So we're asking for an award amount of that, plus a contingency amount of $1.45 million. The budget amendment includes the amounts which, in addition to the contract amount, is the amount needed that we're going to need to borrow from the general obligation borrowing, as well as the TID borrowing. And those include the material acquisition, such as street lighting and traffic signals, and the property acquisition in there too. So those increases, we're asking for an increase over what the capital improvement plan budget had requested in the amounts that are listed in the packet. And then if you want to explain the vote on
Oh, yeah, Rebecca, you want to explain?
Yeah, before we explain the votes, can you explain the low bidder and some of the work that low bidder has done in the region?
Yep, so just kind of a snapshot of integrity is very commonly seen in large highway projects. This last year, they've worked on Verona Road, County M, and Fitzroy and Nesbit, all very kind of local, familiar projects, similar projects.
Okay. The other point that I'd add in regards to the budget amendment, the budget amendment would require, in order for this to be approved, would require a supermajority of alders, not just present, but of alders, period. So it would require 6 votes to approve this to move forward.
And if it doesn't get approved tonight, would that mean that it's unlikely to happen next year, or would we try and bring it back in January and maybe
It would.
come close?
If it wasn't approved tonight, we'd have to go all the way back through the bidding process. It wouldn't be a good thing.
Sheena, did you have a question?
So for this like crushed recycled concrete, I just have a question. Because I know, how common is that? Because I know we did that on PD and it was a disaster and we had to redo the whole thing.
It's quite frankly very common. The Wisconsin Department of Transportation generally does it on all projects where that material is, basically it's on site and you pay to get rid of it and then bring in new, or you basically reuse it.
Okay.
The biggest,
So we're basically recycling the concrete we already have there?
you're essentially going to recycle the pavement and some of the gravel underneath, and that gets graded with engineered or quarried material, and there's quality control measures that are kind of with the Department of Transportation established for gradation, placement, measuring. So there's a lot of structure to controlling that material, but the reality is it's a very common construction technique. We ultimately didn't do it the first time around based on some anecdotal experience with McKee Road and other projects, but with a lot of kind of rethinking and restructuring of the contract, we're confident that material is going to be used appropriately, and quality control will ensure that it's suitable or equivalent as quarried material would be.
Thank you.
Let you know.
We talked about this in finance, but I'll ask you to kind of repeat again. Can we talk a little bit about the considerations that we've got for helping our neighbors as they come and go through that corridor during construction?
Yeah, so the question is relative to the traffic disruption that 2 years of construction will put on both regional and local users of Fish Hatchery Road. So we have quite a bit in the contract that is intended to mitigate, traffic disruption. We have for regional travel, so people who essentially maybe are from Oregon, use Fish Hatchery Road to get to the Beltline or downtown, will have a full signed alternate route that will lead people down M, which was recently repaved, kind of in preparation for this alternate route, but it'll lead people to M, Verona Road, the Beltline, Highway 14, other suitable major routes in lieu of Fish Hatchery Road. So we're doing that to provide a second, and in reality, there's two different ways to go on the alternate route. And then more for local traffic, there is what we're calling the neighborhood traffic management plan is a portion of the contract, and that's essentially just a grab bag of traffic mitigation devices. It might be electronic signs or barrels or barricades, things that can be deployed in the neighborhoods if you're seeing a lot of cut-through traffic or unintentional use of, say, parking lots and things that occur often in construction projects. We have a plan in place to mitigate those kind of on a case-by-case basis. And then overall, the structure of the contract does have deadlines and, restrictions on closing two intersections next to each other. You can only close one, not both, and there are timelines on some of the disruptions intended to make just life easier for businesses and people who drive and live along the corridor.
Dan?
So I guess the question I have, so we've sort of gone a long ways. It's been a long journey here on this. And so just so alders understand, as the Public Works Chair, my question is, I think we got to think about the market conditions. And so I want to ask, if this were to fail, let's say, because we need a supermajority, let's say it were to fail, and we were to rebid sometime in the summer or something next year, what's the circumstances surrounding that? Would we be likely to get better bids, or would the cost maybe go up, or is it unclear? What do you think about that? We've already rebid it once.
Essentially, there's never a guarantee. I mean, we've rebid once, and I would suggest with more favorable terms to increase competitiveness and pricing competitiveness. I don't know there's a whole lot we could do other than hope for a recession or some sort of economic condition to change. The project, I think, is what it is, and quite frankly, inflationary pressure will take place the longer it is between now and the next time you would bid it, hypothetically. I do think seasonally as well, we rebid it in a time frame that has better opportunity for contractors to see the project, bid on the project. The first bid was in the summer, everybody's busy. That was potentially another factor in why that was so much higher. I think this season with the second bid is as good as you can get to make sure you get the contracting community's attention.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Pat wants to address this, or maybe Mike or Bill, but I believe that the schedule was decided on, and doing the north section was decided on because of some projects both Park Bank and the owners of the juice plant want to do. And can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, one of the reasons the project was chosen to do the north end first is we do have some nice economic development projects that are moving forward. The Park Bank located at Greenway Cross and Fish Hatchery Road will be done next year in conjunction with that construction. The UW Credit Union was constructed and has some temporary measures put in place in terms of turning lanes and stuff that will be improved, so safety is going to be an issue and improvements will be made at that location. And then thirdly, we do have one economic development project that you've seen sky over our golf course there, about 4 stories, overlooking Traceway and the golf course, a nice senior housing project. And across the road, there's another project that's presented in sort of draft form to the Plan Commission and will be coming in front of this body soon for a mixed-use development at the juice plant site. So that'll be a redevelopment project. It'll add approximately $20 to $25 million of additional value to that site and will go a long way towards paying this project off. So those are the type of things we're trying to do is get this road in place so we can have the economic development opportunities to pay the road off.
I believe those all said that they'd also like to have their road redone while they're under construction versus getting their projects done and then the road is under construction.
Yeah, they definitely don't want the disruption of trying to lease out space or, have new tenants going through a construction period. So it does make sense to do this road in construction with those in conjunction with those projects.
Yeah, Shannon.
I know we have kind of over by the bank, by the new bank and things like that, like over there, have we come up with any sort of way to kind of make it easier to get out of there? Have we worked that into the plan somehow?
Yeah, definitely. The new plans, and they are online, shows all the turning configurations that are both out of driveways and within the roadway itself, sort of left turn inlets and things like that. So I would encourage you all to take a look at that, and if you have any questions, our staff would be happy to walk you through it if you want to come in.
I should mention that Thorwick from Integrity is also here to answer questions if anyone has questions as well. Other comments, questions, anything like that?
I talked to
Yeah, yeah. If you could come up quick, that was a question for you.
In reference to this bid, you came back with a bid to the city of 20.3 million, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct.
I believe the bid will probably be higher. And how do you compensate for that? Or when you get going on this, I just don't believe this bid. It's not that I don't trust you, it's just what you could run into, what's out there. But know that concrete that we don't know. Talk to me about this bid a little bit, I guess is what I'm after.
Yeah, well, as stated before, we have done multiple large projects in the area, not only this area, but statewide. So as far as concrete that's out there recycling at very common practice throughout DOT, other municipalities, it's very common, more common now than ever. So I feel very confident I know there's some past history in the city on projects before that I wasn't involved in, but I don't feel there's any need for concern going forward with the way it was addressed in the plans and specifications following WISDOT. That's very up on all the QMP and oversight on making sure it's a good product. As far as your question towards the overall bid, budget, overruns, there's a lot of, everything's unknown once you start digging. I can't speak to what an overrun may or may not be. As far as when we prepared our bid, I think the plans and specs put forward by the department, the engineers, covered a lot, very in-depth. I didn't see any smoking gun that we get an award and there's gonna be a $3 million, something that we're sitting on. I think it's very straightforward, and I can't sit here and say there's gonna be no overages, but what that dollar amount is, I can't speak to that.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with you. Where are you out of, or where are you from?
Our corporate headquarters is out of Wausau, central Wisconsin, and we have a regional office since 2017 in Verona. So we've done a lot of work. We did the roundabout project with you guys this year. We've been on Verona Road since 2017. Highway M in Verona and City Madison. We've done some other City Madison stuff, other interstate stuff for WISDOT, WISDOT stuff all over the state. So.
What's your role with the firm?
I am the area manager, so I oversee, I guess, our regional office here out of the Verona, so mostly the Dane County area.
Tom?
City staff, can you just, staff? You can stay there, that's okay.
Oh.
You can stay there for just a second. I know you've been working on Bill, I know you have, I don't question it a bit. When you tell us that you have to buy land and acquisition, there's question marks on that. We don't know how much, we have to buy land. For the alders that don't know, there's land that we have to buy in reference to this road. So my question is, a little bit backwards here, because we're gonna say, if we say yes, and then you're gonna go out and get the bids, shouldn't we have the bids before we say yes? And the deal is maybe you don't know, which I can appreciate. I totally appreciate that. But I think some of these bids, even, if I own a piece of property on Fish Hatchery Road and you're coming and gonna need it for your road, I can tell you what I'm gonna do to the property. It won't be apples and oranges. It's probably gonna be a little heavier to get me to the bank. So, we don't have a bid on this, and it's like we okay it, but then we don't know what's it gonna be, and maybe you can help me with that. Maybe I'm not thinking right, but as I understood it, some of the land we don't know what the price is. Correct me if I'm wrong.
We've gone out and gotten appraisals on all the land. We also have a sales report that we made nominal offers on, so we know what we're paying for it. Based upon the sales report and the appraisals that we have, our current estimate is $2.44 million for all the land on Fish Hatchery Road. And that includes the large parcel for the road going in. But that's what we have for our sales report and the appraisals. So as you had mentioned, property owners are entitled to go out and get a second appraisal on their land. Then we compare the two, and if it's within reason, we could make them an offer based upon their appraisal, or we can issue a jurisdictional offer in which we would just pay for what we have, and then we would go to a court at a later date for the compensation.
Further questions or comments at all? Dan? It'll be roll call, but yes, questions, debate, comments, anything like that.
So I'll just make a couple comments here as your Board of Public Works chairperson. So this has gone on, boy, I tell you what, it has not been easy with this process. I want to credit Tom Clowder, Alder Clowder, because I don't think that Dane County is keeping jurisdiction of the road, okay? And I know that was a big issue for him. The day I got elected, and in my first council meeting, we were talking about it. And it was one of the first things brought up. And Tom said, who owns the road? I remember, why are we paying for someone else's road? And so we made this an issue. And I think the county did get a little nervous. And so then we worked with the county, some of the county officials, and got to a position where the city was more comfortable, because we just ultimately, weren't going to do anything. And of course, citizens are frustrated with the condition of the road. So we do need to move forward, I think, on fixing I think people want the road fixed. There's that. So then you get into some of the cost overruns, which if anyone watches these meetings on a regular basis, you've heard me talk. And I know our administrator, our Public Works Department, our Economic Development Director will tell you. I brought up a lot of things. There's some stuff in here that I had some serious consternation with. But, the council ultimately voted on those things, and we're moving on. And so, is it perfect? I don't know if any gigantic project like this is ever going to be to perfection. Tom, I you brought up the issue of asphalt, but to be fair to our staff and to some of the people working on this, we did direct them to do asphalt in a unanimous vote, about a year ago. And so, some of this stuff. Now, I think you bring up very good questions about the cost. I don't want to see cost overruns. I'm concerned about the taxpayer. That's why I asked the questions I did. But ultimately, I'm also concerned if we don't go forward with this, what's the cost going to be if we rebid this thing this summer when you consider inflation? Maybe market conditions make the cost worse. You just don't know. It's sort of an unknown. And so maybe a recession will hit, and the cost will go down, but we also, as a city, will have less revenue, and then your increment's questionable because you're not generating the business in the TID, so that's not so good either. So I think right now we probably are in the best position we could be in, theoretically, to move forward on something that is, our citizens badly want. We need it. We can go through the project and debate the various components. Believe me, I've brought a lot of those up. A lot of you that have been on here for a while have heard it. The staff has heard it. But we're to a point here, it's, we can keep going and going through the project, but if we keep questioning everything and at some point we just gotta go forward, I think. And so that's sort of where I'm at. But I do give Alder Clouder a lot of credit, because without him, I don't know that we would have the jurisdictional agreement we have with the county and the investment from the county, because the county has stepped up. We have to give the county executive's office credit, the county executive himself, his staff, Jenny Dye, our former or our county board person. Got to give those people credit, because I don't know that other jurisdictions in the county have gotten deals like this. This is good for the city, I think, in terms of the agreement we've reached with the county. I feel much better about that. That's all I got.
I was impressed when the county immediately said that they'd step up and contribute more when we got the higher estimates. That was great to hear. Other comments?
I have a
Tom?
question for Pat.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I'll tell you why I'm asking this, is because of, and I'm not going to get into it, but because of the Lacey Road project from City Hall to Sign Road that was overrun quite heavily. I'll just leave it at that. Can you assure me that somebody would be assigned to this project from start to finish, as far as watching the cost and getting back to this council in the future?
I can assure you that, yes, we'll have multiple people involved with oversight. Yes, I can't assure you that there won't be cost overruns, as was noted earlier, but I will keep a close eye on the project.
Anyone else? All right, then we're going to do a roll call vote, because we do need 6 of the 7 here to get the supermajority. We do need 6 out of 7 to approve, so I don't see anything else, so I guess I will, last chance, go ahead and ask for roll call, please.
Alder Barr,
Aye.
Alder Clouder,
Aye.
Alder Krause,
Aye.
Alder Rice,
Aye.
Alder Schroeder, Alder Scott,
Aye.
Alder Strassman,
Aye.
motion carried.
All right, great, thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, anything else for Public Works? There's no more resolutions, but anything else you want to report on, Dan, for Public Works?
Next meeting will be on Monday.
All right, Park Commission, Sarah.
I'd like to move to approve Resolution R 19919, the Community Center Rental Fee Policy Park Commission.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, and did Park Commission approve?
We did.
All right, did Finance approve? I don't know, Tom or Janelle, did Finance approve?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you want to tell us what's going on, Sarah?
Yes, so this is specific to the senior center. Right now, the fee structure doesn't, charges nonprofits the facility fees, and the senior center would like a statement added that calls out nonprofit higher education institutions that are collaborating with the senior center or recreation departments are exempt from this fee policy. It just is a nice way to encourage our facilities to be used by residents, and not have to have a facility charge for when they are used by nonprofit higher education institutions.
All right, questions? Yeah, Dorothy.
Yeah, I question why we want to be as specific as that. And why is it that it's just higher education institutions? And can we consider taking out that phrase and just saying nonprofits that are collaborating?
We did discuss that in the Parks Commission meeting, and it was, currently that was the question being proposed, is that it was MATC in particular that was putting on, or was a partner with the senior center, and that's how the question was raised. And it was also just, that was kind of the focus that we had at that point, and it was specific to that that arrangement, I guess, where that was where we were proposing it. I do think it'd be a little nervous to make it too open-ended. That since we were being asked to accommodate MATC and knew there was a need for it, that it seemed to make sense to limit it to that audience group.
Pat, do you want to speak to that too?
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit on that. Is a lot of the users that use our facility and rent the facility are not-for-profits, but they may not be not-for-profits that are working in conjunction with the city, as they are in this particular project here with MATC. You know, we rely on that revenue as part of our operating budget, and I think it's an important component to have in place. Now, if there were groups that were working in conjunction with the city and they came forward, like MATC has in this case, I think this body would consider that.
Anything else? All right, seeing nothing else, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that passes. Anything else, Sarah, for Parks?
Nope, that's it, sir.
All right, Library Board?
I've got a couple of things. First of all, our next meeting is next Wednesday, December 18th at 5:30 at the library. And the other thing is that the update on LinkCat has been finished, and they went live yesterday with some crashes. But for the most part, things seem to be going very well, and you'll be able to get back on LinkCat and order books and things like that again.
All right.
And the self-checkouts are working.
Good. Yeah, I know Wendy said today that about 85% of checkouts are self-checkouts, so they didn't have those, and staff was
Right.
understanding how much they love the self-checkouts.
And they couldn't reshelve books until they got up and going again.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. Commission on Aging Well.
Meeting upcoming Thursday at 8:30 in the morning here.
All right. RCC, sir?
Our next meeting is January 27th.
All right. Transportation and Transit.
We're going to be meeting in January and reviewing the comprehensive plan
All right.
components related to transportation.
All right. CETA, Julie's not here. Sarah, or Shannon, do you want to do a motion on this?
Okay. So, what we talked about in the meeting, or one of the things that we had in the meeting that kind of sticks out, is we had the presentation for the juice factory. The developers came in and kind of gave us another look of what they're planning on doing. And then for the Fitchburg Festival of Speed, we gave $5,000 towards the fireworks, which we do every year, but we're actually going to be trying to make it more of a family event instead of just for the biking part of it, that people, after the biking, that they can bring their families and make people more aware that we have those fireworks every year.
All right. And can you also make a motion on the resolution now?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I can.
Great.
Okay. Make a, do you want me to read the whole thing?
Yeah, I just move to approve and read
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I move to approve Resolution R198-19, amendment of the Fitchburg Chamber of Visitors and Business Bureau payments.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. And did CETA approve it?
Yes.
All right. Did Finance approve it? All right. Good. Do you want to talk to this at all? Speak to what it is? Or I think these are the annual, Pat's gone right now, but every year we give these payments. I think it's part of our room tax fees where we have to give, I think it's 75% to the Madison Chamber, 70%.
Yeah.
Yep. To the, we don't actually give them to the Madison Chamber, but they manage that for us, I should say. And so it's kind of an annual thing that we have to do every year. So, any questions at all?
Oh, yeah, it's right in here.
All right. Then all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right. Then that is approved. Ag and Rural Affairs, Janelle.
Really, probably the most significant thing we talked about briefly, we had a meeting around Lake Barney. I think it was there's solid progress that's being made in that area. In my opinion, it's one of the more complex challenges that we've got because of not only the nature of the civil engineering, but multiple stakeholders that are part of trying to find a solution there. And, you know, really the thing that spoke to me is that everybody's leaning into this thing. I'm not sensing any territorial issues. We've got some dollars in place to start doing a study to find a good solution to a very, very complicated problem. And we'll continue to make sure that we've got ongoing communications with the neighbors that are impacted by this, as well as the various stakeholders, so that we can, you know, kind of start taking some steps to try some specific things, do some study work, and then after that study work, to look at bidding out a solution. So that's probably easily the most significant thing that we're looking at. There'll also be a get-together with some of the rural members. There's an annual get-together that we do with them that'll be targeted for February. We're working on dates for that.
All right, great. Then moving on, EMS.
I think we had a little thing with this past Friday, didn't we, Mayor?
Yeah, uncoupling, yep.
Yeah, you want to talk about that?
Sure. Along with the fire department, we had what's called the uncoupling. Is essentially the open house grand opening of our new station on Syene Road, and so we had people out, gave tours. If you have not been out there yet, Chief Pulvermacher has offered to give you all a personal tour, and so you're welcome to go out there and see that. You should. It's a wonderful facility, and I think it's going to be really beneficial for our firefighters, especially some of the training that that station provides, but also for residents and being able to provide great coverage for residents in that area as well.
Thank you to Sub-Zero for probably giving us some of the most beautiful equipment that a fire station could possibly ask for.
Yep. All right. Going on, bicycle committee is Julia, so we'll skip on that. Tree advisory. No report? All right. Landmarks preservation? All right. Finance, Tom?
We had everybody present tonight, and this is approval of bills. These, the first stack is checks number 119992 through 120050. These are dated 11/16/19 through 11/30/19. The total was $506,329.07. There are no questions, I'll keep going. The next one was ACH, the payments. These are dated, this was November of this year. That total was $421,676.57. And then we had two resolutions and ordinances. The first one was resolution, it's our 202, and I'll make the motion, 202-19, resolution authorizing payment to Verizon Wireless for monthly services charges, and this was for 2020.
All right. And do you want to speak to, well, it kind of says what it is. It's our just monthly charges throughout 2020.
That's all it is.
We kind of do this every year about this time, just authorizing it once so you don't have to do it monthly.
End of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions? Then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, that one's approved.
Next one's resolution, it's our 203-19, a resolution authorizing payment to the Wisconsin Independent Network for monthly services charges for 2020. Move it.
Second.
All right, second by Janelle. Kind of the same thing as the last
Same
one.
type of thing.
Yeah. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, anything else for finance?
No, we had a long agenda, and actually now we don't meet until next year, the second Tuesday of the month.
All right, great. Personnel, Julie's not here. Anything else? Do you have a meeting coming up scheduled at all?
January.
January? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Public safety.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2019-0-32.
Second.
Reading, go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, why don't you read it?
creating Chapter 48, Article 11, Section 25, updating the prohibition of smoking to include the use of electronic smoking devices and paraphernalia.
All right, and I heard Sarah second that one. All right, and did public safety approve?
We did.
All right, can you speak to what this is?
Actually, I had contacted Valerie a couple of months ago and asked if we could do this. They're talking about doing a ban for the whole state, but it seems like it takes a long time for that kind of thing to happen through the state. So I asked her if we could just do that locally, and she talked to Pat and you, I think, and so she went ahead and made these changes that would just update our regular smoking ban to include these also.
Dan?
So, this is not just on city premises, is this gonna apply
No.
to private establishments?
The same thing as smoking in restaurants and all kinds of places, yes.
Okay. No, well,
You can't regulate people's houses.
Or outside.
Yeah, or outside. Questions at all, comments?
I do have a comment.
Yeah, Dan.
So I'm just of the opinion, like, look, and I appreciate, I understand, and I remember when we had the debate over the smoking ban. I'm a believer, and I respect public health, I get all that, and now we're getting into non-smoking. I understand it's a nicotine-related item, okay, but if someone wants to ban this sort of external device in their facility, maybe we should just leave it to the owner to decide that, you know, if Benvenuto's or some other entity would like to do that. You know, I just kind of feel that, you know, it's private property. They have a policy. And if you're a customer, you don't like the fact that they allow it, then you can make the choice to not go in. That's just sort of my view on this stuff, so that's where I'm coming from. And I can appreciate, you know, the people like the smoking ban, I know it, but now we're getting into other things, and I just think at some point we just want to let the proprietor decide what their policy is and leave it at that, and then the customer can make a choice about whether they want to go to that establishment, and if they're unhappy that there's a, what is these, like what is it,
E-cigarette.
E-cigarette, if they're unhappy that there's e-cigarettes, I guess that's, you choose not to go there if you don't like it. That's sort of how I feel.
Other comments at all, questions? Shannon?
Were you talking about just bringing it in or actually smoking in there with them, or both? Dan?
No, I mean, so it's just my opinion. I don't know that the city, in my view, just my opinion, if I own a restaurant, and so we have a smoking ban, you can't smoke. Now we're talking about secondary devices that contain nicotine. And what I would say about that is, you know, they're much safer devices. Now, there's been some issues with the use of these things out in the public that, you know, whatever. But I'm sort of the opinion that really the bottom line is if I own an establishment, I think that I, as the owner, should set the policy. And if the customer likes that policy, then they can attend my establishment. If they don't like the policy, they can choose to not come into my establishment. You make a choice to go in or not.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Elder Dan Barr should decide. I think the proprietor should just decide how their business ought to be run. It's just my view.
Dorothy?
My guess would be that by and large, when smoking bans went into effect, proprietors were relieved that they didn't have to deal with irate customers anymore that wanted to smoke and some that didn't want smoking, and it just settled it for everyone. I don't have any problem at all, because what I have seen over time is that as smoking and the problems associated with smoking went away and certain large companies started losing money over people not smoking so much, they started finding other ways to get addictive substances into their revenue stream. And I have absolutely no problem helping to discourage that.
Anyone else at all? Tom?
How does, I guess I'm looking at public safety and human services, how did this come about? Who brought this up, or where did this come from? Do we know?
I did. I asked Valerie if we could do that. The state was talking about doing it on the statewide basis, and I asked her if we could just go ahead and do it in the city of Fitchburg. So she checked with a few people and then wrote the changes that we would need to ban e-cigarettes in public establishments in Fitchburg.
Yeah, Janelle.
I would want to make sure that, first of all, we were consistent with what we're doing right now. So I would support having the e-cigarettes be consistent with what we're doing with cigarettes. I would say if we chose to, as a body, to not do that, that I would request that there be signage put on the front of that establishment. If I go in as a non-smoker and I don't know whether this is or isn't permitted here, I sit down and I, order my dinner, somebody lights up next to me, it's kind of too late for me to be comfortable if I've placed a food order to get up and walk out based on whoever happens to sit next to me that had that option. So I would request something be almost front and center when you walk in the door so I know when I enter that facility what may or may not happen there.
I know someone said to me that there's a lot of unknowns about whatever you expel after you use an e-cigarette. It's not smoke like cigarettes, and it's supposedly okay, but there's a lot of unknowns, and I think you've seen people even dying by using some of these e-cigarettes recently, and they haven't been using them that long. It's not like, cigarettes, which a lot of times takes 20, 30 years, so I think that's some of the concerns some people have too, is there's so many unknowns about this product. Yeah, Dorothy?
And since it's largely the teenagers that are, I would suspect that they would be the ones that proprietors would have a difficult time saying, no, we don't want e-cigarettes in our place. And the kids would get upset about being told what to do. So I would just as soon put it on the city and make the city the bad guy.
Yeah, Janelle?
One last point, as has been mentioned, there's a tremendous amount that we don't know about this. One of the things that we don't know about it is any potential secondhand impact of this. And so again, I would say, since we don't know what those issues are, there are lots of people out there that have health-related issues, and I think we owe it to them, again, that if we are going to approve this, to be very front and center about it. So if they've got their own, either personal opinions or health-related issues, that we just not compromise that.
Anything else? No? All right. Then why don't we go ahead and vote? All in favor of approving this ordinance, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Nay. All right, my opinion, the ayes have that, and that passes. Moving on, is there anything else public safety you wanted to talk about, Ian?
No, that is all. Thank you.
All right. Mayor's reports, just a couple of things. I don't know if you mentioned, Pat, this Saturday is the staff holiday party at 6 p.m. at the library. You're all welcome to attend. Thank you. So if you want to go to that, you're welcome to.
They got white elephant?
I think there is a white elephant piece to that, yeah. They do ask you to bring a dish to pass of some kind. I think it's a dessert or a salad.
And your own bed.
Either one. Oh, yeah. Yep. They'll have water. So if you want anything besides water, especially if you're an adult, you can bring that with you. And then the other thing I was going to talk about is yesterday, Grace had our grand opening for a new kind of service they're providing, and it's providing hospice care to people with memory issues. It's not necessarily people with dementia, because some diseases like cancer in your brain could also affect your memory, but it is a pretty great thing to have in our community. They talked about last night, it's only the third or fourth facility in the country that provides these services, hospice services for those people. So we're fortunate to have that here. It's something new that they're opening up on Monday. They expect to have their first residents go in there, but they really put a lot of thought into how do you care for someone with those memory issues. We can go down the line. Dorothy, do you have a Alder report?
I'll pass.
All right, Ann? I'll pass. Dan?
Real quick, so I was at the Christmas party, and I want to thank Scott Endel and our FACT TV staff for their coverage of that. Did a nice job, and I want to thank those employees. I don't have all the names, but those that worked on Sunday. It was a weekend. They came in, and I was there with the Lions Club. But I want to thank all those folks that did work on a Sunday.
I know we gave away 300 cups of hot chocolate. They gave over 250 cookies away. Those were all gone before the end of the 4 hours. So there's a lot of people there. 100, like Pat said, 140 people saw Santa. So it was a very popular event. Sarah? Shannon? No? Tom?
I just have two things. One, thanks to the police department for running radar on Richardson. And people in the neighborhood don't want to thank them. But we did have a problem with speeders there, and they did a nice job on alerting the neighbors to slow down. The second thing is just remind people you might have to have a coal car this winter. Don't let yours run, because when you come out, it might not be there. So just keep that in mind throughout the whole city, and not one area versus another. You've got to watch running those cars.
Yeah. And even I'd say when you're in other parts of the county, if you're visiting friends, shopping, anything like that. Janelle?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. First, again, echoing what we've already said about a Grace. You go through there, and there are basic things like there's a stove in place, and yet that stove is controlled by the nursing staff. So if somebody was kind of used to going into that space, we don't want to put them in harm's way, and yet the family could come in and make a request of the nursing staff if they wanted to prepare a meal for their loved one. There was just a staggering number of details like that that were phenomenally well thought of in trying to make things comfortable for them. Just a million little details that really were just beautifully, beautifully designed. I think we had the Agora event this past weekend. I've gone in years past, had a company responsibility, so couldn't make it, but that's always been an outstanding event, and it feels like it's growing in every way imaginable every year. It's just getting stronger and stronger, so grateful to see that. Echo what we talked about as far as the Neighborhood Watch. When I was the president of our neighborhood association, this was one of the 2 times of the year that we had increased issues, and it really came up from a couple of places. The kids were home from college. They weren't used to the fundamentals. They were not locking those vehicles up. That's a massive thing. They'll come in, they'll take your remote for your house, and then you got big problems. You're leaving stuff in the car that's your holiday shopping in plain sight, and that's just an invitation for trouble. And so just a quick reminder that these are opportunities. So don't leave stuff in the car. Keep those cars safe and the assets of your house safe. Otherwise, not only have you put yourself in harm's way, you've put a target on the back of your whole neighborhood.
All right, moving along, unfinished business update discussion on comprehensive plan. Sonia, come on up. I'll just reiterate again, Thursday we have a special plan commission meeting. You're all welcome to come. We're gonna be focusing on comp plan, going through more pieces to that, and I'll turn it over to you, Sonia.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't have a formal update tonight. I'm primarily here just to address any questions that you all may have as this process begins to wind down. In terms of next steps and opportunities scheduled for any more feedback, those are rather limited. This Thursday, the mayor mentioned earlier, there's a special meeting of the Plan Commission at 6:30, and we'll be going through the goals, objectives, and policies within each specific section of the comp plan. So, for example, within the housing section, within the transportation section, et cetera. Changes to those goals, objectives, and policies are relatively minor, again, in sort of compliance or accordance with the council's direction for this limited scope of work on the comp plan update. So that's this Thursday, December 12th. And then the following Tuesday, December 17th, is our regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting, and we'll be, again, just providing an opportunity to ask questions and provide feedback on a refined final draft of the plan. As we approach the end of the year, staff will be refining the draft further, and we intend to post the full draft of the plan either before the end of the year or the first week or so in January, so that we can publish our Class 1 or 2 notice for the public hearing at Plan Commission, which will occur on January 21st. We'll also be here at Committee of the Whole on January 22nd to provide more information. But beyond that, we are in the formal statutory process for adoption, and we'll be asking the Plan Commission for a recommendation on the plan January 21st, and then it will come before you all after the required 30-day comment period is published.
We must have another agenda item coming up to provide some further direction as well, so we'll be talking about that. Questions for Sonia for right now? Tom?
In reference to the plan, in reference to the elected officials, it's a little different for me because I'm in the Plan Commission, but anyhow, let's look at when can the elected officials put things in the plan? I mean, as of right now, the plan has gone down the road, which has 3 or 4 people involved. And the fact of the matter is I know for myself, I can bring to the Plan Commission, don't misunderstand me, I got that. But when is the door open for elected officials to add to the plan?
Sure. Just a recap of the process, we did begin this back in May, and we've provided a couple of summary memos recently. The most recently compiled memo was November 26th. That's posted on the website, and that lists chronologically all of the opportunities and meetings that we've had for public input, including here before the council. We've been in front of the Plan Commission and council multiple times, as well as at Committee of the Whole, in addition to our extensive public outreach process. So from a planning department perspective, we've been here multiple times requesting input. And if you have further points that you'd like to make comment on, we're still welcome. Those comments are welcome.
And you don't have to do it just in a public meeting. If you want to meet with staff or email staff, you can also do that, or anyone. Further questions for now? All right. Well, more to come in our agenda item later here, but we can keep moving along then. New to business, there are a lot of direct referrals. Couple reasons you can see a lot of these are relating to some renovations in the fire station, but also because we don't have a second meeting this month, that kind of limits our opportunities to approve some of these items. And so some of these things we want to keep moving on without what we would like to do normally with referring things out. So first up, does someone on finance want to do the first resolution for me?
You want me to do it, Tom, or you want to?
Sure, the first one's Resolution R 204-19, acceptance of the fire headquarters, its HVAC bid. I'll move approval.
All right, did finance approve?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to speak to this? Do you want Chief to speak to this?
Actually, because there's so many of them, I believe there's like 9 or 10. If there's any questions, the chief can talk to them, but this has to do obviously with the, I'll say, upgrade of the firehouse on Lacey Road.
Station
But
1,
if he
the original.
questions, he can address them.
Yeah, if I can do a quick summary. So we had a conversation around the budget around this and where we're currently at. The budget on this was, for all of these areas, was approximately $750,000. If we take a look at the things that have already been brought forward, as well as the things that you see before you tonight, I want to say that we were, for discussion's sake, under $500,000. We've got 2 scopes left to be done. I asked the chief if he thought that he expected those 2 outstanding items to be within the range of that $750,000. And as a result of that, we would be at or below budget as proposed. And he assured me that, in fact, that was true. And so all of the detail that you see before you as far as these separate resolutions go are, in fact, those detailed bids for separate components of paint or drywall or things of that nature. But again, at a summary that gives you a sense of how this project looks.
All right. Chief, do you want to speak to what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons you're seeing the number of direct referrals is because of the way that we tried to assist with this project to keep it under budget. Our firefighters did some of the work. We had an available workforce taking care of some of the things in the station. along with the fact that we had a number of people who were also involved in the investment of other items that were going into the station, namely Dane County and the cooperation that we have with their emergency management division, providing about $250,000 worth of assets. So we're just trying to keep all of that together, and that's why you're seeing it broken out the way that you have it. Instead of having one general contractor, we tried to address this, still addressing it through sealed bid, which is why it's coming across the way that it is right now. Following statute, but it was broken up a little bit more than we typically would like to see.
Yeah.
I'll just comment, I'm kind of satisfied with your explanations. I will just say this, they're going to be within budget. I don't think we need to go, we should vote on each one, but I don't think we need to comment on each one and pick it to death. They seem to have satisfied, it's one project with separate bids. You know, I'm not going to go, if someone buys a can of paint and say, well, let's debate the bid. You know, we can get through this stuff, I think, and not take 2 hours.
Other questions at all about the projects? Really, in some ways, a group of projects, Dorothy.
Can we do just one en masse vote for, it'd be 9
No,
projects?
unfortunately.
Oh, bummer, okay.
Other comments
We like
before
the
we
State
go through
Journal.
some of these? And, you know, apologies, there's a couple of things that aren't fire department related in the middle of these. We'll try and clean that up for future, but any other comments at all, or do you want to start breezing through these?
Is there any protocol issue with us doing everything fire-related, even if it's out of order?
We could probably, yeah, we could do that. You know, skip 3 and a couple other ones, do those all the way. Yeah. All right, then let's vote on number 1. All in favor of accepting the HVAC bid, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, so who's going to read all these for me? Number 2.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution R20519. Is that what you're reading? No. Or no. Sorry, I'm like, let's just go.
We could have someone on
Go
the finance committee do it. Sarah wants to
Don't
be
have
on
to
finance
ask me.
committee in the
Don't
future.
even ask me, just jump right in. Don't have to ask me. The next one, though, is resolution, I'll move it, it's resolution R205-19, acceptance of fire headquarter electric design and build bid.
Second.
All right, but did finance approve?
Yes.
Did finance approve all these?
Yes.
Okay,
Finance.
all right, I won't ask in the future. All right, anything, all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, how about number 4? We'll skip to 4.
Sarah.
I'm going to do a motion to approve resolution R226-19, acceptance of a fire headquarters carpentry bid.
Second.
All right,
Finance approved.
all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, number 5.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve resolution R227-19, acceptance of a fire headquarters voice, data, TV speakers bid.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, that's approved.
I'll make a motion, resolution R228-19, acceptance of fire headquarters painting bid.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
I'll make a resolution R229-19, acceptance of fire headquarters flooring bid.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? You get a resolution, you get a resolution. It's like Oprah. Go ahead, keep going.
I'll make a resolution R230-19, acceptance of fire headquarters insulation and drywall bid.
All right, seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that's approved.
I'll make a resolution R231-19, acceptance of fire headquarters fire protection systems and plumbing bid.
Seconded. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay?
I'll make a resolution R232-19, acceptance of fire headquarters ceiling tile bid.
Seconded by Ann. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? And I think that's all the fire department ones. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Backed up to number 3. Yeah, we skipped number 3. So I don't know if anyone can do this one.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R-221-19, a resolution appointing election inspectors for years 2020 to 2021.
Second.
Tracy, do you want to speak to this?
I just have one comment about
Yeah.
that. On page 499 at the top, there's a misspelling in the word chief. It's supposed to be CHIEF.
The word chief is misspelled. All right, we will fix that. Edited, good. Do you want Tracy speak to what this is?
Sure. What this is our current election inspectors serve a 2-year term. That 2-year term is ending December 31st of 2019. So this is approving them for another 2-year term to serve as election inspectors.
All right. Any other questions? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that is approved. Now to 11. Someone on finance maybe want to do this?
A motion to authorize the submittal of the Wisconsin Department of Transportation Transportation Economic Assistance T grant.
Second.
All right, seconded by Janelle. Do you want to speak to this? Pat, do you want to? I can. Thanks.
I can do it. Yeah, this T grant we've applied for, this would be the fourth one we've applied for over the years. It provides up to $1 million based on the number of jobs that are created or retained by a business in which we are assisting. This would be for the Promega project. We originally did it for Commerce Parkway, but due to some timing of the construction of the Promega building and when they wanted occupancy, we're now applying for that section of Lacey Road that fronts the Promega project. So again, it would be for $1 million grant to cover a portion of Lacey, and then the Commerce project would be tied into the Promega development.
Trying to get a free $1 million. Not a bad
All
thing.
for it.
Free money.
Any questions at all, comments? Everyone wants free money? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right. Healthy neighborhoods. Dorothy?
Resolution R 23419, resolution to approve modifications to the 2020 Healthy Neighborhoods Grant Program.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Wade, do you want to come up and speak to this, or Dorothy, if you want to, or both of you?
I'm going to rely heavily on Wade. He's the one who knows it very well. But in general, the experience that we've had in a couple of cycles now of running the grant program, we're kind of refining and tweaking and have come up with a number of refinements and tweaks. We had a church question real recently that got some press. And there's been a little bit of legal back and forth that says we need to allow it, but we can say not for religious purposes, whether directly or indirectly. There's also been discussion about school districts using money or not. So we're kind of refining definitions for that. We're allowing staff, and our suggestion is up to 20% of the grant funding. We're talking about reporting requirements and kind of stiffening up what we expect in reporting.
Also is doing the United Way part, right?
There was a question about the flexibility of using some of the money for this line item instead of that line item. We're allowing about a 10% shift of those kind of things within the grant. We want exact counts of unduplicated residents that are being impacted. They can't count the same person 20 times. We want to know how many actual people they're working with. Yeah, I'm going to let him talk about the United Way part of it because that's a little more complex. And then talking about the application process, opening late December or early in January, and then being open for about a month. And then in number 7 in there, the last one we had, the grant committee made its recommendations, and then it went back to city staff for final approval. We're wanting to bring it to council for final approval. And I think that's a lot more in line with most of the other things that we do. So I will let him add to any of what I said, as well as talk about the MOU for United Way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good, excuse me, really good overview. In terms of modification number 5 that Dorothy mentioned, essentially we are proposing a partnership with United Way. Basically, United Way would fundraise around a specific issue. The city would bring $15,000 to whatever United Way raises. That pot of money would be essentially put together. We would put out an RFP to essentially hire a service provider. They would be funded with that money, and they would address that issue in one of our neighborhoods. So I think it's a really progressive partnership. It is a pilot. It's new to the city, but I think it has a lot of promise, and really it's about leveraging outside funds to, again, help support our H&I initiative. The MOU with United Way is identified as Appendix B in this resolution. Not going to go through every element of it with you, but certainly can answer any questions that the council might have on it. Again, kind of gives an overview of the partnership, talks about a general timeline, identifies roles and responsibilities, and again, really kind of lays out this pilot partnership. So with that, I can certainly answer any questions the council might have.
I know one of the questions I had a message sent you. Could you speak to the focus on Verona Road for the United Way portion of this?
So this was a committee recommendation, a grant committee recommendation. I think the gist of it is our other 2 neighborhoods are getting a lot of resources already, and we kind of felt like Verona Road West was a little bit of a forgotten neighborhood, for lack of a better term. The MOU does allow for probably a priority focus on Verona Road West, but if we can't make it work there, we can expand to all 3 neighborhoods. So certainly as we develop the partnership, identify the issue, work with providers, we can maybe tweak that if we think that's the best route for the partnership. So there is some flexibility there.
Sorry, Shannon.
Just a quick question. So is it another 15 on top of the 40 that we give every year, like we did this year, kind of?
So my understanding was the council approved essentially $63,000 for the grant program in total this year.
Okay.
15 of that would go towards this fund, this issue. And then whatever United Way raises, they could raise 15, they could raise 20. That would be lumped in with the city 15, and that would be the pot that we have to spend on that issue.
Okay.
Dan.
I don't have a question. I want to thank the committee and for the hours you guys put in, and it's thankless work. I know there's been issues in terms of just recently with some of the media we've gotten, but I think our committee members really do try their best to address some of the needs in the neighborhoods that need it. So, and I think you guys have done a great job trying to improve the processes, so that's great.
Other comments, questions, discussion? Dorothy?
We probably should, when we met, we talked a little bit about what happened with the religious question for this year and what would become of that money. You want to speak to that?
Yeah, that would probably be a discussion with our finance director, just to get a sense of, could that be rolled over? Yeah, we can certainly initiate those discussions. I don't have a definitive answer for you on that yet.
We talked at the very least of using that to backfill the $2,000 hole that the budget left for this year.
Yeah, Shannon. Sorry, Sarah.
I do notice that you have a debrief pilot in Q3 2020. Does that include the council, just out of curiosity, or is it just the Healthy Neighborhood Initiative?
Yeah, I think to whatever degree this council wants to be updated on things, we'd be happy to do that, yep.
It'd be interesting to hear that. I just would be curious.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions, thoughts?
And I'd also invite council to be involved in helping to determine the pilot program for the neighborhood.
Yeah, I believe when you review these, it's an open meeting, anyone can go and provide comments, and I mean, it's like any other meeting, public is welcome to go in and speak to those. We'll try to make sure to talk about it in our meetings too when that's coming up, so people know. Anything else? All right, then we can go ahead and vote then, I think. All in favor of resolution R23419, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that passes. Thanks, Wade.
Yep.
All right. Next one, who wants to do number 13 here?
I'll make a resolution to approve a WISDOT public infrastructure permit to construct and maintain the Badger State Trail Bridge and approaches.
All right.
Second.
All right, second. Do you want to speak to this, Pat?
Yes, there is some additional right-of-way that would be required for the bridge structure itself on railroad property. So what this does is basically gets us the permit to operate basically outside the borders of the trail in completing the structure, and we'll be working with the DOT on that.
And this is the bridge going over McKee Road.
Yeah, this is the new bridge located close to Marketplace going over McKee.
All right. Any further questions at all? Yeah, Ann.
I just want to say, I think that's a great idea because there are a lot of accidents there. The flashing lights come on and some people think, oh my goodness, we should stop, and other people think we shouldn't stop, and then there are a lot of fender benders and.
Yeah, I totally agree, and our police department would second your statements there.
I'll
Along with
third
the
that
bikers.
statement. There's a lot of confusion there.
Yeah. All right. Sounds like people have said what they needed to. All in favor of approving the resolution, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. All right, that one's approved. Tom, do you want to read number 14?
Sure. Thanks. Number 14 is Resolution R 239-19, Draft Comprehensive Plan considered at the public hearing for 2020.
Is there a second? Second. All right, go ahead and speak to it, Tom.
I'm trying to keep this short and and keep it to not repeat myself. Can you believe that? And but the fact is what I'm trying to do here is put some language in the comp plan so the public can also hear about this. And the draft, I'm going to actually say the resolution directs staff to include the wording in the draft comprehensive plan, so it's considered for the public in January and March. And I've talked about this before, I know you've all heard me, but the situation is, we're just trying to not have this ping pong match between the city council and the plan commission, and I want to make it real clear. We respect, I don't think anybody up here doesn't, respects the plan commission's opinion. To say we don't need them. I have a bigger badge than they do is not fair. That's not it at all. That's not the way it is. What we're trying to do is, let's say the other alder that helped me draft this, and I had another opinion from a citizen in Fitchburg helped me with this too. But the fact is, we're just trying to clear it up, clean it up, so there's not this constant bickering between the two bodies. And we don't want any more North Stone Prairie. We just don't want that as a city. And so what this does is it puts it in the plan, I hope, for public opinion. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe they're say, no, that's not what we want. we want it can I use this term, the old way or another way? And that, okay, and we'll accept it. But as of now, I don't want to go on past history a whole lot here because all of you have heard it. You know what this is about. I'm not going to get into wording and reading it. If city staff gets Alder Strassman and myself gets our opinion, they tweak it a little bit, I'm fine with that too. I am. I'm fine with that. You probably are too. The idea is that the message is the same, where the city council just has a little bit more, I'm not going to say a lot, a little bit more opinion than maybe the Plan Commission, so we don't keep doing this. And I know Alder Barr, he talked about people in the Capitol haven't helped us, and I'll be the first to back that. I'll be the first to say, you know, it seems when there's a controversial issue that some people in the Capitol just like to go on vacation. You know, they just don't seem to want to help cities and villages and towns. We're kind of in this together. And if you're wondering, I brought this up before. Madison does it, Janesville does it, Verona does it. I don't know if you know, some of you, that Verona did take a lot of our plan 10 years ago. And what they did was they piggybacked on Fitchburg. And so what we're trying to do here is just, I'm not even, I just want to say stop the bickering, stop the back and forth. And you've heard me say it. I'm trying to keep my words shorter tonight. And and I'll just say it lightly, there must have been a reason the committee, and the mayor can talk to that a little bit, just a little bit, that they worded the way they did in the draft, where I think it should be cleaner. It should be cleaned up better. I think there's still too much controversy there in reference to the Plan Commission versus the City Council. And what we're trying to do is just make it cleaner. And I think, unless you want to add something, Shannon, I mean, that you can think of.
Much hit all the points on there that we wanted to. But we do need to stop we just want to stop the ping-ponging, going back and forth. We've had it with the Stoner Prairie, we've had it with Fish Hatchery, and we got to have an end so we can move on and maybe get different projects in there, or some other things, instead of just keep battling over and over and over. And all of our, and making our citizens come in here time and time again until the point where they just can't come in anymore. They're tired of dealing with it, and they just give up, and that's not fair. And it would just be nice if we could represent them when they show up, and still be able to represent them afterwards. And, we do take into consideration the Plan Commission. They know what they're talking about. But sometimes we gotta really do what's right for the people of Fitchburg.
All right, I have some citizen comments here. First, there's Rita Hendricks wants to speak. Come on up, Rita.
I'm Rita Burke-Henricks, a Fitchburg resident for 15 years. And this is really why I've been here so often. It's important to approve R 239-19 as submitted by Alders, Clowder, and Strassman in order to stop the recent ping pong matches. Over the last year and a half, 2 projects, each requiring at least 3 volleys, have occurred. Numerous forms filled out, meetings attended, comments made, emails sent, calls. We need to stop this. Vote for this so that citizen voices count in the city of Fitchburg. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I also have Amira Kresh from Fitchburg registering in support of the above matter and saying please approve as written. Elias Kresh from Fitchburg registering in support and approve as stated. I also heard from Gary Pedoni from Fitchburg. Please approve agenda item 11A14, resolution R23919 with no amendments. The final say has to rest somewhere and only the common council with our elected officials makes sense. Planning Commission should have recommendation capacity only. And then just apologies for not being able to attend because of some family issues. But not that he doesn't have interest and doesn't support it, but just has some family things that prevents him from being here. And then also Jay Hockmuth from Fitchburg registering in support and reading some comments I've also passed to you. Thank you much, Alders Clouder and Strassman, for adding consideration of this resolution to the agenda for this meeting. Staff should be commended for the overall quality of the draft comp plan dated 11/18/19 for keeping the update process on schedule. However, two provisions in the draft need to be modified as detailed in this resolution for public hearings that are held on the draft plan in January and March of 2020. While the Planning Commission plays an important role in reviewing and making recommendations for minor amendments and major amendments to the comp plan, for reasons listed in the attachment, the draft plan considered at public hearings should indicate the council has the final say as to whether amendment or update is needed and what the wording should be. Three most compelling reasons the council should have final say are: all 9 members of the council are elected, 5 of the 7 members of the Planning Commission are appointed. Elected officials should have the final say on the content of the comp plan as well as amendments and updates thereto. There is no case law that says the council and Planning Commission have to agree on the wording of amendment or update. And 3, in many Wisconsin cities, the common council is not required to agree with the wording recommended by the Planning Commission. In that regard, the Planning Commission believes the wording of the 2 provisions in the resolution should be revised. It can recommend that to the council after the public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting. The wording recommended by the commission, along with the wording in the resolution, can be included in the draft plan for which a public hearing is held at a council meeting in March, maybe April. This approach assures the public is aware of this issue and has sufficient lead time to comment on it during the public hearing at a council meeting in March. Given this background, please vote tonight to approve the resolution R3919. Please do not postpone the vote. Thank you for considering these to take comments. And that's all I have for public comments. Further comments or questions or anything by members of, yeah, Dorothy?
What this is ending up doing is circumventing the public hearing process for the comp plan. It's saying, this is the final, what we want to be in the comp plan, and making that the biggest point that we need to really be aware of is that we have a checks and balances system that we're trying to eliminate. This is a political body. It is subject to whatever political leanings any of us happen to be on at any time, whoever happens to be sitting in that seat. If in the next election or 2 or 3 or whatever, the people sitting here decide to be all gung-ho about building mega gobs of apartments, that's what will end up happening, very likely regardless of public opinion. What the comp plan is a non-political body that hopefully should stabilize any little bits of craziness that might happen up here due to extreme opinions. And we do have extreme opinions up here. If anybody wonders, we have extreme opinions up here. I don't want to eliminate the system of checks and balances that the Plan Commission provides. I want the Plan Commission and the council to figure out how to agree on stuff. If all we're going to do at the council is have extreme people pounding on Plan Commission members and the Plan Commission in general saying, no, 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 you have to do it our way, that's an indication to me that something is really wrong. we need to work it out in a way that we can find the best possible solution between the Plan Commission and the council. It needs to be a system of checks and balances that stays in place. I would like to table this until, so that it can go through the public hearing process for the Plan Commission. So I don't know how to move to table until, or table indefinitely even.
I mean, I guess if you want to move to postpone, you can, or if you want to let other people have a chance to speak. I mean, if you want to make a motion, then you can do that now, or you can wait, or.
If I move to table, that ends discussion, so I'm not going to do that right now. I'd like to hear what other people think about it.
Right. The only clarification I did want to make is that this resolution would have this wording go into what is presented to the public in January. So there is an opportunity to change that depending on feedback from the community. If we get a lot of feedback from the community saying, no, don't change this, then I would expect people would probably listen to that. But I know that that's really the intent, and this isn't necessarily final. So I just want to clarify that. You get probably a feel for where people are leaning, but we do have that public input coming up. I have Dan next.
So I've had an opportunity to talk to Alder Clouder and Shannon a little bit, and also I've had various contacts from residents in and out of the district I represent. And so some good discussions. First off, I want to discuss the state issue, because I think the current statutes as they're written are written by lawyers for lawyers to make money from lawsuits, which is too bad, because the state doesn't give us a lot of clarity. But in the absence of I think of state statute, because as a person who works in local government on a day-to-day basis in my day job, if there is no state statute that preempts the city or a county or a town from taking action, in the absence of that, then essentially you're able to set your own policy unless the state dictates the policy. That's sort of the way our system works. And so, however, I think our city attorney's done a nice job trying to protect us, saying, hey, you know, there are questions whether these two bodies need to concur, but you might want to do it just to protect yourself. That being said, I don't disagree with what Tom is saying. You know, we ought to put this in, because there is alternative language also that says you'd have to go through the Plan Commission first and have those bodies concur. And he's saying, no, council should have the final say. And so we can consider that in the comp plan as we go forward and then decide. Now, Dorothy, I appreciate what you had to say. You know, and I can respect that some would argue that there ought to be a balance of power, that there ought to be checks and balances, and that the Plan Commission can act on it. I don't agree with that philosophy, but I respect that you have that point of view. There's nothing wrong with that point of view. I do feel that the elected officials are the accountable entities, the people out there. You're elected by your constituents, and thus, if they don't like what you're doing, they can throw you out, you know, or whatever, you know, or they can re-elect you if they like it. That's sort of representative democracy. So I don't see a whole problem with that. In most cases, we have a finance committee, Board of Public Works. We make recommendations. This body considers those recommendations. 95% of the time, we usually take up those recommendations, and that's it, because they do the heavy lifting and they study the issue, and then you get it, and okay, yeah, they seem to be looking into it, and they're making these recommendations to us, and unless there's some sort of exception from the elected members of this body, then it goes through. But, you know, we had a situation here in the city which I thought was really bad with North Stoner Prairie. It was nuts. and there was clearly a lot of people that just weren't happy with the way that was evolving. And yet it seems like the overwhelming majority in the city and the elected officials just, you know, because of ambiguity in state statutes and of course trying to protect ourselves from lawsuits and things like that, we just couldn't come to a conclusion until after a whole number of back and forths with the Plan Commission. And I kind of thought the Plan Commission at that point did kind of go beyond, you know, just making recommendations, and they'd change, you know, policy that the policy body make and take it, change it, send it back to us. And they're not elected to do that, I don't believe. And I don't think as an elected official I can support that sort of thing. I understand that there are those that want to, they call it checks and balances. But we have a check on the council. It's called the election. It's called democracy. That's your check and balance, okay? I think that. And so we have checks and balances. And so I think this is appropriate. I think we can put it in. Like they said, it's not final. We'll just simply go in. It will compete with the other clause that states that both bodies have to concur, as Tom had mentioned. I think Tom made that point. He just wants it in there so that this body can consider it. I make no bones about where I stand. I do absolutely elected officials should have the final say. It's why we are here. I mean, what's the point if we don't have the final say as elected officials of running or of voting? Might as well, I don't know. It just seems silly to me. So there is a check. It's called the voters. That's your check. Your balance, your council. That's your check and balance. And so I think that this is appropriate. I appreciate Tom and Shannon, your work, and I know you've worked with staff and others on it, and so that's sort of where it's at.
I have Janelle and then Dorothy.
So first, I want to echo what's been said here. Our Plan Commission is talented. They provide expertise, and they are a technical body. We have struggled with this, in part, as you've heard before, in the absence of case law. I live in the North Stoner Prairie area, and I can assure you that we were a force as a neighborhood. We had 500 signatures. We sat in an unbelievable number of meetings. There was significant time behind the scenes. And I think ultimately, if there was one thing that summarized what the 500 people had to say, is they didn't feel like they had a voice in that process. And that's why I'm sitting here. They were unbelievably frustrated. And I think that that's what this piece does, is it puts a construct in place that says that we respect the expertise of that technical body in the Plan Commission, but ultimately, by giving this body the authority to address that, not only do we address these 2 rounds of ping pongs that we've seen for discussion's sake in the past 2 years, we assure the citizens that they still have a voice in this process.
All right, Dorothy.
I think a certain number of citizens have a voice in the process, however this is worded. One of my concerns is the question of who's at the table. If there's 400 people that sign a petition, that's 1.3% of the population. I've done math in the past on that. There's a lot of the people in this city who are not represented. It might be in any one development that there's a number of the local residents to that development that are speaking for or against whatever. But we, as council and the Plan Commission and all the decision makers in the city, need to appropriately represent what is best for the entire city, not specifically just what a certain set of people want for their particular neighborhood. One of the concerns that I've expressed in the past is that all that we're hearing from, and any number of people, is that the generations that are up and coming are not going to want big houses on big lots. And we are in danger of saying all we want is big houses on big lots. And when we go to sell those big houses on big lots and very few people are interested in buying them, the value of them are going to go down like crazy. People can giggle all they want, but that's what I've been getting from a lot of planning type people, from WIDA people, from Madison staff from at least 2 different chamber events where they've had people that are talking about working with the upcoming generation. The question about housing and things has been asked, and that's been a really big topic, is not only what they're going to want, but also the question of who can afford that. Can our typical store clerks, our teachers, fire department, whatever those level of professional people, how many of those houses that those neighborhoods want are those people going to afford to live in? Or do we truly want to be a city where it's going to be poor people and executives, and that's going to be the division? We really, really need to focus on trying to figure out housing for the people that we want to live here and that we want to work here. We need to look at housing for everyone, not just the people who live here that like big houses and want neighbors, their neighbors to live in houses just like theirs. It's difficult. I don't know. It's just kind of frustrating having so much experience with so many people that are really, really struggling, and then looking out at other people who say, I like my big house. I want all my neighbors to have
Dorothy,
a big house like mine.
Can you tie it back to the item, which is really kind of the agreement between plan and council a little bit too? If you can tie it back, I'm sure you're getting there, but make sure you tie it back.
That's it. That's what it's all about, is we need to look at more than just the current, what the current neighbors want and what the current council members want. We have to have a way to say that's not necessarily what would be the very best thing for the city as a whole. And I think that's what the Plan Commission's job is, and it should also be our job.
All right, I got Dan and then Shannon after that, and Sarah.
So I appreciate your comments, Dorothy. Let me unpackage some of that. So first things first. You mentioned, people that aren't really engaged in some of the processes, whether they be elections or lack of participation, lack of signing a petition, and you're saying they don't have representation. We represent everyone, regardless of whether they're active in civics and elections and those things or not. We just simply do. And to say that, well, since they don't vote, they're not active, that somehow the Plan Commission represents them, or you guys, or you seem to think you know what they want, I wouldn't make that assumption. We don't know what people want unless they actively tell us or engage. And we do have to try and have as much outreach as possible to get an idea. But ultimately, those that participate, there's an old saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I would encourage people to participate. The more, the better, absolutely. But ultimately, participation is important. And so I don't think we can make assumptions about what they want and say, well, this body only represents the people in big houses. It's not true. I got people in apartments in my district too. I have some affluent neighborhoods, there's no question. The second point is, I also, you mentioned the generational differences that certain millennials perhaps don't want to own things, they just want to live in apartments. I don't know. I think this, as a representative of all Fitchburg citizens, and particularly my district too, I want all of our citizens, regardless of background, to prosper. I think having equity in home ownership, I'm not talking about advocating for big houses on big lots. I don't think a lot of people have advocated for that. We have advocated for more home ownership. I think some here on the council and in the community have concerns that the rate of high-density apartments has sort of exceeded the need, as opposed to affordable home ownership opportunities for people. And we want young people, we want minorities, we want our citizens, we want people in lower income situations to move up the income ladder and prosper. And one of the ways they are able to do that is by generating equity from owning a home. There's no question about that. We want to bring people out of poverty. We want them to improve their lives. We want them to be successful. And we want to give them the tools to do that. And if we just tell them to stay in a apartments, I don't think that's a good idea. I lived in an apartment for a long time on Chapel Valley Road here in Fitchburg. It's fine, and if that's something people make choices, but we want them to have the opportunity, if they choose to buy a home, to generate equity and then in the circle of life, if they get a starter home, it's affordable, hopefully find affordable housing, home ownership opportunities, then they can move on to the next phase in life. Maybe then they have kids, they want a bigger home. They can sell their first starter home and
I have
get a
to
larger
say
one.
we're getting way off track here, guys. This isn't on the agenda, home ownership versus renting. This is a plan commission versus council who has a decision. So you guys got to get back on track. I need to.
So I would just sum it up by saying, and I appreciate your comments, Dorothy, you're right, we want to look out for those people who, even if they don't participate, we represent them all. Everyone's cognizant of that, okay? But then I would also say the elected body represents everyone, okay? Plan commission, those that are appointed to the plan commission, they represent everyone too. But the elected body is the elected body. There's no way to get around that. So I think that's what the point Tom and Shannon are trying to make with the resolution.
Thank you.
Shannon.
He said it all.
All right.
We're
Sarah.
good. Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
I guess my only comments are is I do really appreciate the Plan Commission, and I think that they're a valuable team that can provide us feedback, and they do give a perspective that incorporates the whole city and wouldn't necessarily be driven by individuals within specific districts. And so I think that they're exceedingly valuable, and I appreciate their perspective. I also have some concerns just having this be going against what our legal representative is telling us to do. So I appreciate what the Plan Commission offers. I think that they give valuable perspective of an overarching opinion and aren't necessarily swayed by individuals or specific districts. But I do think that it's been just embarrassing, kind of what some of our residents have had to do and had to come to so many meetings that just pains me and just doesn't sit well with me at all. So I do think that this is a smart idea. Like, it's going to be included within the draft. Let's get the feedback from the public and move forward with it, where it's just, I think there's some concerns, without a doubt, where checks and balances of the Plan Commission is valuable. The legal implications make me a little nervous, but I think that being this in draft, having it be shared with the public, let's learn what we can by having it put forth and get the feedback from individuals. That I think, I do support this just because I think it's a nice way to, let's hear what the public has to say about it. We know that there's some concerns. We have some things that we've talked about at length up here of things that could be an issue, but let's hear what people have to say.
Tom, did you want to speak again?
Well, I took away some things after listening to Bar. There's a lot of committees in the city, and keep in mind, they're all valuable. It's not parks against plan and plan against transportation and keep going. It's not it at all. They're all valuable. I haven't heard anybody say they're not. But, just a couple of things. All of us have apartments in our community, in our jurisdiction. We all do. It's not just you, Dorothy. It's everyone. I have them. And, just be careful, be real careful about condemning people with big homes and big lots. My advice to you is be real careful. My last comment to you, in a nice way, is we're in Fitchburg. We're not in Madison. We're not in Stoughton. We're in Fitchburg. All your thoughts, because you do represent the county too, but your main thoughts are Fitchburg, and I think you'd agree with me. I do. I think you'd agree with me. And what this is trying to do is just not make us look bad. I'll leave it at that. Not make the city of Fitchburg look bad. And Up until this point, have we? I'll let you answer that question.
All right, ready to, go ahead, Dorothy.
I think we've looked horrible. But I also think that it's a messy process. We could probably make it less messy if we really wanted to, but the unwillingness to compromise makes it impossible. And that's where we end up running into really huge problems, is just like every other level of government, it's a partisan vote. Every vote is a partisan vote, including on this body. And I hate that. I would love to see us figure out working together better. But when people say my way or no way, it becomes impossible. We need to find ways.
All right, anyone else? Are you ready to vote? All right,
vote.
let's go ahead and vote then. All in favor of resolution R
Roll call.
23919? All right, I don't think we need it, but go ahead.
Alder Barr,
Aye.
Alder Clouder,
Aye.
Alder Krause,
No.
Alder Rice,
Absolutely.
Alder Schroeder,
Aye.
Alder Scott,
No.
Alder Strassman,
Aye.
Passes. All right. So that passes. Next council meeting is not until January 14th. It's kind of a long ways away. I don't have a meeting because of the holiday. And next meeting, the whole meeting is also in January. So see you then. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, we are adjourned.